John Daniel here, and today I'd like to share with you a segment from the History Channel that aired back in 2007 about the 1944 Massena earthquake. It was on a program called Mega Disasters Earthquakes. And in this segment, there are a couple interviews with some people from Massena, and I helped put this together. All the historic photos you see in this segment were from my collection, and also there were many other facts I gave to the producers who put this show together, but unfortunately they weren't used. I didn't find out about this until about 2 days after the interviews were done. If they would have had interviewed me, it would have been more interesting, in my opinion, because I gave them a lot of stories, such as Nick Pogursky, who worked at the newspaper in Massena, jumping under his desk during the earthquake, thinking that the Nazis had bombed Massena at Alcoa because it was during World War II. And a lot of other people in town thought the Germans were here bombing the plant. And they were running out in the streets and everything. And also, one of the men in the Massena police force doing his beat when the earthquake hit. The windows started to break at the Newberry store downtown, and stuff started coming out the windows. None of that was used. But this aired in 2007, and unfortunately, they goofed. They said the earthquake occurred in July of 1944. It happened in September of 1944. The day after this aired on the History Channel all around the United States, I emailed the lady who was the producer and told her the mistake. And she emailed me back simply by saying the word, "Yikes!" So, if you ever watch it, the earthquake happened in September 1944, not July of 1944, here in Massena.
But there are more recent reminders of devastating earthquakes along the East Coast.
I was 18 years old at the time, and like I say, it was an event that I will never forget.
Just after midnight on a July night in 1944, a magnitude 5.9 earthquake erupted in the sleepy town of Massena, New York.
It was the first major earthquake that this area had experienced.
We had gone out to celebrate our graduation. There was a few of us that went out to the local bar and had a few beers, and about 12 o'clock we closed the place down. Then we decided we'd better get home. It was a very, very quiet night. You could hear a pin drop. I stepped in the door, put my foot on the first step, and bang, the earthquake hit.
I woke up feeling as if there was a freight train going very fast past the door of my room, and the bed was shaking.
I could hear dishes rattling.
Just like that somebody picked you up and shook you.
I think every other person on the street was out in the middle of the street in their pajamas and robes.
The earthquake ripped through Massena and across the border into neighboring Cornwall, Ontario.
The fault runs from the northwest to the southeast across the river and through the towns of Cornwall and Massena. The next day, I think the full force of what had happened hit. People were wandering around the town like zombies.
A school building came down, and many chimneys were damaged. Brick walls were broken by that earthquake.
The two small towns of Massena and Cornwall suffered more than $2 million in property damage, about $50 million in today's dollars. 90% of the brick chimneys were destroyed, and brick masonry and concrete structures suffered severe damage. Plumbing and house foundations were ruined. Large cracks formed in the ground in nearby Hogansburg, New York. Property damage in Cornwall, Ontario was especially bad.
They seem to use, for some reason, a lot of brick and mortar over in the Canadian side. We have brick houses in Massena, but nothing like they do over in Cornwall.
The Massena earthquake has been closely studied by East Coast seismologists and others as an example of the kind of damage a smaller earthquake can do in an area of mainly brick and masonry buildings.
The Massena earthquake was interesting because it showed what an earthquake that is not quite 6 can do to the type of construction that we still have a lot of around in New York City.
Oh, I think in a metropolitan, heavily populated area, it would probably be a real disaster.
One of those kinds of earthquakes centered right near one of our major metropolitan areas, like Boston or New York, would cause significant damage.
The 1944 quake did no damage in New York City. Next time, the city might not be so lucky.